Regine, hi.
Hello.
Can you tell me something about what you do professionally and for how long?
Well, I am a organizational development consultant and leadership coach, leadership and executive coach. So I have my own business. It's called SuccessReach Ltd, and I work with a lot of corporations, team building, and also leadership development, organizational design, and strategic planning. And of course the coaching, the one-on-one coaching, and also group coaching as well. So a lot of what I do is working with mid-sized businesses for the most part, and I also have clients across mostly the United States where I'm located. I'm located in Santa Barbara, California, and so it's most of my clients are in the United States, but I'm excited to hear about your programs and such. So just a little background. For over 25 years, I was in the banking industry. And there I was in majority of my career was in organizational development. And so I managed a lot of employee development programs and such. And through that, I had senior leadership positions in three different banks over my course of my career. I also have some experience. I jumped out of banking for a while and worked with a nonprofit organization that raises funds for other nonprofits and also for community such. It's called United Way of Santa Barbara County. And I worked with them for 5 years. Mostly doing fundraising and also fund distribution. So where does the funds go and how to evaluate nonprofits. So I have a blend of nonprofits, academic. Right now, I'm also teaching as an adjunct faculty on an online program at Fielding Graduate University as well.
Right. So what would you say is the biggest struggle maybe with the businesses that you work with?
I think the biggest struggle is trust. Right now, it seems there seems, because of coming through the pandemic, and then also a lot of the remote workers, a lot of the hybrid workers, and the leadership is different than when you're in a face-to-face environment. And as a result, people aren't connecting as more and on deeper levels. So that kind of has a breach in the trust. So I'm finding that I'm doing a lot of work around conflict resolution. And a lot of that has to do with somehow that trust has been broken. And how do you repair it? And how do you work with people to understand that, first of all, to understand each other, and then to understand how to communicate better.
Right. Can you elaborate maybe a little more about the trust issues that the businesses have? What is behind it? Is it like a problem with trust? I don't know, maybe with employees, or how would you define it?
I think it's twofold. There's also that with employees, so the manager and the employees, and if they're not really taking the effort, like I have in my course, the LinkedIn course, when we're talking about building that trust, making an intention to build the trust, and if you're not doing that, then there's no trust there. So and then it becomes more of a transactional relationship, and that does not lead to transformation or creativity or innovation. So that's one of the things I'm seeing. But I'm also seeing between leaders that there is a kind of a break in trust. And that also happens, I believe, my belief is that, again, it's finding the right way of working together and understanding each other. So I do a lot of work about understanding communication styles. I use the DISC. I use the Myers-Briggs, and just having people understand that, they're wired differently and it's okay. And I call it the diversity of thought. because it is a different way of approaching life. And once you start understanding that it's not personal, it's preference. It's the way that they present themselves. So that has helped significantly in a lot of cases. And also I've done actually group coaching and working together to really kind of identify where there's those areas of mistrust, and how do we kind of address that and repair the trust. Because, you know, the relationships and in working relationships, you have to have that type of trust of each other.
Do you think trust and empathy are connected?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that goes into the emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I'm also certified in. I love these instruments and I love doing that type of work. But again, there's definitely showing that empathy is one of the strong points of emotional intelligence. And that really makes a difference in leadership. And that goes back to like understanding someone else, because you're empathizing with the way that that person does their work, communicates, and it's not judging that person on how they communicate, but really having empathy for them. So absolutely, I agree 100%.
Do you think it can be taught to be more, to be more empathetic, maybe?
You know, it can. It's bringing the person's awareness, and that comes back to the emotional intelligence side. So part of that is self-awareness. So being aware of what your actions, your own actions, your own emotions, and then also being aware of the other person's reactions and emotions to you. And then understanding that you can actually kind of make an effort. Again, intention comes back to intention, intentional effort to really listen, have active listening and listening to a person and hearing them on a deep level. And so that is the empathetic side of things. So I think it can be learned, but it also takes having the desire to learn. And I think that's the key. If you have people who are willing to learn and experiment and try new behaviors, then you can learn it. Like kind of like a toddler, trying to walk, and they fall down, and they get up. But we make those kinds of mistakes, but we fall. When we fall, get up quickly and learn from them and start changing the way that we interact with individuals.
Do you see a spike in these topics during recent years? There was a pandemic and stuff like that. Do you think people are actually more interested in these topics these days?
Yes, I do. That's why it's keeping me busy in my business. Yes, I did. I worked with one organization, small, organization, mid-sized bank. And I went through the Myers-Briggs with 55 people in a couple of months. And I'm finding more and more that people are wanting to do that because, you think about, we've been in isolation for a while. And we're in ourselves, we're in our own being. So we're kind of used to our own being, but not used to that interaction that we used to have. So I think now it's really building that understanding of the other person, what their needs are, and how you can adapt to the individual's needs as well as honor your own.
Can you maybe provide 2 or 3 tips for people if they want to know actually how to maybe have a little more trust, maybe be more empathetic, maybe communicate more? What would you advise them?
Well, first of all, I would say take stock of yourself. Do that self-awareness. What's working in your work world and what's not. And when there is something that's not working, really start evaluating, is this a trust issue? Do I trust this individual? And sometimes it's what I've done with like two people who had conflict and they weren't trusting each other. And then I've asked them to just think of one thing about the other person that they trust, just one thing. And it was almost magical because they each said something about how much they appreciate the other person. And then that was the foundation to really build on so that you can continue building that trust. So that's one tip of kind of having those conversations, but making sure that you're in a safe environment. And what I mean is psychologically safe environment, to have people feel that they can be heard and they're not being judged, and to really start working with that. And then it's, again, being self-aware, being conscious, looking at how you treated somebody, or looking at how somebody treated you, where you felt really good about that. And then kind of saying, okay, how do I do that for somebody else? And then modifying your behavior accordingly.
Right. Well, maybe let's move on to the educational part.
Mm-hmm.
You, of course, have courses on LinkedIn. Do you think, or what would you say about courses in general? Is it something that can shape a person? It can be important to join them, to look at them. Can it make a difference, essentially?
Absolutely. I believe 100% in education. Just so you know, I have an MBA. I also have a master's and a PhD. And then I went back to school and got my certification through, another 190 hours of coursework to get my certification through the International Coaching Federation. So I am a proponent of education. I feel that, education is, it's an investment in yourself. It's an investment in your growth, investment in your career as well.
Right.
So I think that, and now there's so many different avenues of education, just like we have the LinkedIn learning. That's one avenue. There's avenues where you could take a course at a university or a college that may be face-to-face. And you can have even a hybrid type of thing, that it can be just posting, can be just listening to videos, and it can also be Zoom meetings as well. So there's so many different avenues now that we have to educate ourselves. The main thing is not just to passively take that information in, but to actively take that information in. And what I mean by that is, don't just listen and multitask while you're doing so, and really take in what the message is. Think about, what are you going to do differently after that course? How are you going to use that information to make a change for the positive?
Right.
And
do you think, do you think online education is for everyone, or do you have to be in any particular mindset?
I think that for the majority of the people, you can do online education. But I also think that there's a few people that really need that kind of interaction, that personal interaction. So if you can combine the two, like, for example, the course that I was talking about teaching at Fielding Graduate University, it's combined, and a lot of it is posting. So it's responding. I respond to posts, but we do have periodic Zoom meetings, and we do have students from all over, even international students. So it's having that kind of combination that I think works great for some people. And you have to, again, take ownership of your education. And that's the key, because you can still be in Zoom meetings and still not be actively listening.
Yeah, correct. What would you say is the most practical information from your course?
The most practical information from my course is that, again, intentional. Just make the time to really build the relationships. The other thing is on the new employees, onboarding. It's different when you come into an organization, you sit down and you have your peers all next to you. You can get that socialization of how to be in this organization. That's kind of the culture of the organization. But if you're sitting at home and you're alone, you're not getting that information. So it's up to the leader, in my opinion, the manager and leader, to come in and bring in that cultural aspect of how things are done. Make it so that they do have opportunities, the new employees and all employees, and that, for that matter, have the opportunity to connect with their peers in a very kind of more casual way. In some ways, it doesn't have to be a formal thing, but you have to schedule that in, because we're not next to each other. So you have to, again, have that intention to bring in that other individual to build those working relationships.
Right. What do you predict for the future of online education?
I think that there's so much that can be done. And part of it, we have the whole conversation about AI. And I see that AI can help in some ways, in that you can really start, with online education, have like a course that, or I should say a curriculum that kind of meets your needs of what you want and how you want it, and whatever you've taken, and how to build on different strengths. So I think there's a lot of great opportunity out there, and we have so much potential to do so much more.
Is there anything that you are currently working on? Is there anything you would like to say maybe about your future projects, and or any additional info about your work?
Yes, I'm in the process of writing a book. So my book is about authentic leadership. And specifically, my book, and I've done some research. I've done a research project post-graduate school on how women are authentic in their leadership roles. And so that's the topic of my book. So I'm in the process of analyzing the data that I acquired with the interviews that I had. And I'm really focused on the not the super phenomenal women that have accomplished major things, but the women that have worked day to day to get into leadership positions and have really worked well and still retained their identity and their ability to connect, be inclusive, and build trust. So I've interviewed some incredible women in all different kinds of industries. And so now in putting my book together on that.
Okay, Marie-Jean, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for the interview.